Imagine being raised to believe capture is worse than death. You surrender, certain you'll be beaten, humiliated, and starved. Then, you're handed a tray of food so generous, it feels like a dream. That's the exact whiplash Japanese POWs faced in 1945, and it left them reeling. But how did this meal both heal their bodies and tear apart their beliefs? And why did some leave camp feeling more conflicted than ever? Chapter 1. American Jailers. During World War II, a remarkable and hard-to-believe number of Japanese soldiers, on the order of 35,000 to 50,000, actually surrendered to Allied forces. That shocked even their captors, because Japanese military doctrine since 1941 had drilled into every soldier: never live to experience shame as a prisoner. In plain terms, dying in battle was honor, and being captured was the ultimate disgrace. These men went into captivity expecting the worst. Rumors of torture, lethal cruelty, and lifelong dishonor were among the nicest of punishments. In fact, one novelized POW diary has a starving Japanese soldier fantasizing, "They'll give us so much corned beef to eat, we won't know what to do with it," mocking the idea of surrender. The reality they encountered was almost equally unbelievable. American POW camps were not at all like the prison I had been expecting or fearing, recalled Mitsugu Sakihara, a teenage Okinawan drafted in the army after arriving at Angel Island. The barracks were clean and bright. Bunks had white sheets. Americans greeted them with trays of food rather than bullets. In Shohei Okar's memoir, another former Japanese POW, men who tasted U.S. Army rations praised them as near paradise. In short, everything Sakihara and his comrades thought they knew about the enemy was flipped on its head by that first meal. Before we move on to the next section, please don't forget to subscribe if you've liked the video so far. Chapter 2. First Freedom Feast. At day 1 at an American POW camp, Japanese soldiers were herded into a spotless mess hall and handed trays full of food. One boy soldier remembered, "The mess hall was simple but very clean. Inside, we picked up a tray and stepped up to a counter where a big Caucasian slapped food onto our tray as we passed by. We served ourselves toast and milk or coffee." Think about it. A starving young man, used to eating grass or watery rice porridge, suddenly finding warm bread, pats of butter or jam, and mugs of hot coffee or milk in front of him. It must have felt surreal. These meals followed U.S. Army regulations. Soldiers were ordered to treat POWs under the Geneva Convention. That meant the portions were generous: eggs, meat, bread, even sweets or coffee each morning. For the Japanese, these items were luxuries, or unknowns, in their native diet. Many must have paused mid-bite, wondering if it was a trick. After all, their propaganda said the Americans would hate them, or if they'd accidentally died. But there was no poison, just bacon, eggs, and good coffee. In a flash, they realized this wasn't punishment at all. It was care. By the time the soup ladles came out, fear and suspicion began to melt away in the steam. And in an instant, the first meal wasn't nourishment. It was emotional healing disguised as food. Chapter 3. Emotional Healing. That first meal did more than fill empty stomachs. It set off an emotional upheaval. Survivors later described feeling a jolt of humanity at the mess hall. One memoir notes that in the American camp, we were first-class POWs, a ration of 2,700 calories a day, and the men still refer to the camp as paradise. To put it in perspective, before capture, many of these soldiers had scraped by on well under 1,000 calories per day. So this was literally 3 times more food than they'd seen on the front lines. Physically, they began to recover immediately. Their skin grew rosy again, and strength returned after just a few days of normal meals. Psychologically, the change ran even deeper. Hunger and despair gave way to gratitude and confusion. Had they misjudged the enemy completely? Western allies had planned to treat prisoners in accordance with relevant international conventions. And indeed, Japanese POWs in American and Australian or Indian camps later reported generally good conditions. For prisoners raised to view the Allies as monsters, this generous treatment was earth-shattering. Some men wept from relief or disbelief. Others felt a new, fragile hope that maybe surrender didn't mean the end of their humanity. Maybe there were merciful captors who realized these young men were simply caught in the tides of war. Chapter 4. Nourishment or Mercy? In war, every bite of food can carry a message. By sharing a proper meal, American troops were sending a powerful signal of mercy and civilization. U.S. Army policymakers were explicit. Prisoners would eat well. A 1942 memo from the War Department reminded quartermasters that POWs must get the same high-calorie rations as GIs. In practice, this meant clean mess halls and full menus, not holes in the ground or starvation like the Japanese inflicted on Allied captives. Each bowl of soup and slice of bread showed these soldiers a rule of war they had never known, that the victors, bound by the Geneva Convention, had the power not to mistreat the defeated. The art of feeding them, day after day, spoke louder than propaganda. To a Japanese POW, steamed rice and pickles in camp had been a basic duty of his own army, but a tray heaped with beef stew or canned peaches felt like a gift. The generosity of American rations thus became almost a physical embodiment of international law. Here, you are a person, it said. In turn, that simple kindness undermined the decades of indoctrination they had carried. The enemy's humane behavior challenged their deepest beliefs. Chapter 5. Clashing Taste Buds. Want to understand the world better? Start with history and subscribe to our channel. The menu itself was like nothing these men had seen at home. Japan's wartime diet was austere, mostly rice, some fish or veggies, and Western items were rare. Now they were confronted with bacon, hot dogs, hamburgers, potatoes, and even ice cream and cola. Allied propagandists even broadcast offers of hot coffee, milk, bread, and canned food. Anything you want. If you wish, we can even feed you beefsteak and sashimi to lure deserting soldiers. In the camp mess, many saw those promises become reality. One diary noted that in Japanese camps, the men toasted bread with bean paste on it. But whenever we had bread, we missed the taste of butter and corned beef dreadfully. Now, for the first time, butter and canned roast beef appeared on their plates, and so did foods like hot cereal, fried eggs, puddings, and canned peaches. Even a simple glass of cold milk or soda was shocking after months of rationed water. The effect was electric. Soldiers poked at desserts, took cautious first bites of meat, and swung their heads at the sizzle of fryers. Every unfamiliar flavor chipped away at another barrier between the enemy and themselves. In those moments, food was a cross-cultural ambassador, building bridges, flavor by flavor. Chapter 6. Physically, the first meal set the stage for full recovery. Emaciated men quickly put on weight and regained energy once given full rations. While detailed studies of Japanese POWs are rare, the same Allied records show German POWs in the U.S. camps actually gained about 25 pounds on average in a few years, a clue that their diets were far above what they'd had in the field. Mentally, the effects were even more profound and lasting. Thousands of former POWs returned to Japan in 1946 and 1947, many as different people from when they left. On one repatriation trip from San Francisco, nearly 700 Japanese soldiers and assistants boarded the USS Sea Flasher. including over 100 still convalescing, along with the ashes of comrades who had died there. These men left with new, conflicted feelings. Some quietly thanked the Americans. Others felt guilty they had survived in comfort while their villages were bombed. Almost all of them returned with stories that clashed starkly with official wartime dogma. After experiencing a simple act of kindness, a good hot meal, how could they ever look at the war or the people who fought it in the old way? But do you think that if Napoleon had access to tanks and airplanes, would he have conquered all of Europe? Maybe even the world? Or would he have made the same fatal mistakes as Hitler? Here's another video history buffs enjoyed watching. Goodbye for now.